Hello everyone, thank you for joining on this first episode of You Need This Book in Your Life, a humble project which may or may not be what David Hume would call the first rude essay of some infant deity, but may actually end up be just some weird nerd talking about books on the internet. Well, whichever it turns out to be, thank you very much for joining. And the first book that we're going to be talking about this week is the recent effort from Dr. Cassandra Coburn, Enough, which is by an editor, scientist and writer called Dr. Cassandra Coburn, who has a PhD in genetics and an exhaustive knowledge of food production systems and their impact on the environment. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably have an understanding that a book which focuses on a diet, in particular a diet which is about the overall health of the environment, let's just say it's a genre where woo and quackery and pseudoscience runs rampant as people look for a quick fix. Well, if that's your concern about books that recommend diets, you can cast it out of the window when it comes to Enough, because what Dr. Coburn has done here is put together a meticulous, cogently reasoned argument for why humanity's current food production systems are just not sustainable for the 21st century. There are some really blinding facts in here. For example, the making of a 250 gram burger patty takes more than the floor area of the average British house to produce. The amount of land currently which is given over to meat production and feed for animals used in meat production is just enormous. And as the world becomes more affluent and more people have an expectation that they're going to be moving over to the kind of meat-heavy diet that we've seen in the West over the last couple of centuries, we risk there is no way of sanitizing the concept of economic or environmental catastrophe. Those two things going hand in hand, of course. Now, that all sounds very grim and very glum. Now, it brings me enormous pleasure to say that Dr. Coburn's book just doesn't read like that at all. It's not a top-down nag, make you feel bad for your dietary choices. It's much more empowering. She's not interested in peering over your shoulder at what you've got on your plate. She just talks in there about the planetary health diet, which is centered very much on eating in a way which is sustainable. Now that obviously, or I would assume it's obvious by now, includes less meat. It includes less milk and dairy products, but fortunately, Dr. Coburn includes a boatload of other useful good stuff, backed up by detailed nutritional data that you actually can eat as part of the planetary health diet. So the overall effect of the book is to leave you feeling like the power to change the world for the better and make the future more sustainable for our children is actually in our hands. Now, they say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so has this book changed my own personal eating habits? And I am happy to say it has. That means things like I've eaten a boatload of vegetarian sausages this weekend. I'm sorry, Dr. Coburn, I know they're not perfect, but like you said, they are at least better environmentally than some of the other stuff. I have been eating no processed meat or any of that type of thing. I'd already migrated over to non-dairy milks like oat milk, which incidentally is delicious. You should give it a try. And I think a little bit more in general about the environmental impact of what I eat now. And I think one of the final things that I want to leave you with that Dr. Coburn does in this book is talk about how it's not about being perfect in dietary choices. We do have to make changes, but if we all make modest changes, which are achievable, we don't need to rely on a tiny core of people living like Puritans. The author herself admits she enjoys a hangover burger some mornings, which it doesn't get more real life and down to earth than that for me. So I would say Do you need Dr. Cassandra Coburn's book enough in your life? Yep, you definitely do. Thank you for tuning in to this first episode, everyone. It's as raw and rough as it's ever likely to be. Hopefully I will get better over time. But if you like what you've seen here today and you want to give us a bit of inspiration, I would really appreciate a like or a share. Or if you really feel like pushing the boat out, go for a subscribe. I'll include a link to Dr. Coburn's book in the comments, in the caption thing that goes below. So thank you for joining, everyone, and I will see you next time. Dr. Cassandra Coburn.